And I do a job. I do a very good job at what I do, and care very deeply about each and every person that I work with, and have always had a great relationship with everybody in hockey, and have never had any issues in overlapping personal and my views or whatever. It's never been an issue ever. And so, in saying that, the one of the most disturbing things is how quickly, whatever you want to call it, cancel culture, the mob, woke mob, whatever you want to call it, and how quick they are in passing judgment about certain things. Uh, and in my case, it is not even of anything I ever said or posted. I never did anything like that.
That was Dusty Imoo, developmental goalie coach, formerly of the Los Angeles Kings, Winnipeg Jets, and for a hot minute, the Toronto Maple Leafs. And you are listening to the Up My Hockey podcast with Jason Podolin. Just watch me now. Welcome to Up My Hockey with Jason Podolin, where we deconstruct the NHL journey, discuss what it takes to make it, and have a few laughs along the way. I'm your host, Jason Podolin, a 31st overall draft pick who played 41 NHL games, but thought he was destined for 1,000. Learn from my story and those of my guests. This is a hockey podcast about reaching your potential. Hello there, and welcome to Up My Hockey for another episode. I'm your host, Jason Podolin, and today we are going to be going a little bit of a different direction. My guest today is Dusty Imoo. For those of you who have been faithful listeners, you have to go all the way back to the early days. I believe it's a single-digit episode where Dusty first appeared. He's a goaltending coach, worked with the LA Kings and the Winnipeg Jets, has worked with Jack Campbell, and has been credited by many as resurrecting Jack's career. He's also worked with Cal Peterson and Hellebuck and Peter Budaj and many established goalies. And he has been dubbed the goalie doctor or the goalie therapist. And we talked all about his strategies and the way he works with goalies and how he does that back in that first episode. However, this is a little bit different direction, and it has to do with what happened over the summer when he was hired and then subsequently fired hours later by the Toronto Maple Leafs. He was hired to work with the Toronto Marlies. And this episode is more about what happened there, but less about what happened there, and we try and keep it about cancel culture. What that means, what we can do about it, why it exists, and we have a conversation. I know Dusty well, not super well, but we played together for a couple months in Japan. We stayed in contact since then. I'm definitely following his career. I've been on his podcast. He's been on mine. I know him well enough to know him, to be comfortable in inviting him on the program to share his story. I said right from the get-go when this thing first happened, I reached out to him and I said, hey, if you ever want to talk about this, I'm your guy. Let's talk about this. Let's see what happened. And for those of you who don't know the entire story, we will get into it. But Dusty has been silent about it for, I guess, 5 months now. It happened in August. He was advised by his lawyers not to speak about it, so he didn't go public with anything until recently, and he put out a statement just recently, which I'll read now. We talk about it on the episode here. I got to put my reading glasses on. Oh my goodness, I'm getting old and I can't see anymore. So this is a statement from Dusty. In light of the events that happened to me in early August, I feel that I am ready and would like to speak out now. It has shocked me that I was publicly shamed for some of my Twitter likes, which soon after cost me my job. It has been heartbreaking to see the things that some people were labeling me as. Heartbreaking because my family has had to read and listen to this, and because I am none of these things. People that know me know this. For the record, I am not a transphobic or homophobic person. I've always believed that people have the right to choose their own path. I am definitely not a racist or a white supremacist, seeing as I am a minority and I have dealt with racism since I was a child. Even more importantly, I have never pushed or even shared my views with anyone outside my family and a few close friends. I don't care whether you are black, white, yellow, purple, left, right, center, or out to lunch on the moon. I will and always have accepted my friends, family, and people I don't even know for who they are. That is their right and freedom to be proud of. It is their right and freedom to be proud of who they are. My views on politics and the world issues don't define me as a person and where my heart is, as they don't for you. I am just trying to be the best version of me that I can. We are all watching the world unfold and are forming views and opinions that are ever changing, and that should be okay. What we shouldn't do is let it divide us. Although you might not agree with me or I might not agree with you, I will always try to keep my arms open to you. It is my hope that you will do the same. Sincerely, Dusty. So that was Dusty's statement after these Twitter likes, which we get into, and some of these other things that happened where he was called transphobic and he was called homophobic and he was called racist. For likes, let's be clear here, for likes on comments, we didn't get into the specifics. And I wish we kind of did, to be honest. But whatever, I left it up to Dusty to where he wanted to go with it, because they were nefarious at best. I mean, what he was liking did not say anything. Because you like a Trump post doesn't mean that you're a racist or a misogynist. It doesn't mean, it doesn't mean anything if you like a post about Trump. Some of these other ones were just, it was baffling to me how quickly this thing turned. So, and we get into it in the story here. So we try and keep it on the rails, and this is by Dusty's request, was not specifically about the inner workings and the details of how it all unraveled with the Toronto Maple Leafs, and how, after Brendan Shanahan's comment that he is probably blackballed throughout the entire league now, unnecessarily. But we talk about cancel culture, and we talk about it because it exists, it happens. People are frightened by it. People in the media are scared about it, and so they don't touch subjects, and they don't want to dig in, and they don't want to help somebody like Dusty. And so this is our way of having a conversation about this. This is something that has bothered me since its inception, meaning cancel culture. It is something that actually scares me, that people's voices are not allowed to be heard. Not to mention, even in Dusty's scenario, like I'm no lawyer, but like even the legality of some of these things, where your opinions lie and whether they help him be a good goaltending coach or not are definitely to be questioned. So, anyways, I think this is a conversation you can have amongst your friends, amongst your family. What is the solution to cancel culture, and how do we move forward? I really sincerely feel empathy for Dusty. I know he's got a big heart, and I know he's a good human, and how he was portrayed in the papers is just unfair. I mean, it's just plain and simple. But society has cast its wand and has cast its judgment, and people move on. But for Dusty, he's still living in it. He has moved on, as you can hear in this episode, with grace, I might add, and with eloquence. And I'm proud of him for that, but it doesn't mean that it's right, and it doesn't mean that it should happen. So I hope you enjoy this episode. It's a good one, and it's a little bit different, like I said, than others, but I think it's worth listening to. So please enjoy my conversation with goaltending coach Dusty Imoo. All right, here we are with Dusty Imoo, former guest, back for round two. And although it's always good to see your face, Dusty, this is a topic that we need to dive into, and we're going to get into your story with the Leafs, with cancel culture, with what you're doing now. And I'm glad you're able to join us here. Thanks for coming, man.
It's good to see you again, buddy.
Yeah, no, thanks. Um, so in the intro, I've kind of laid out what we're doing here, Dusty. So for the readers, they kind of know the background. For those who followed the Toronto Maple Leafs and the off season, it was not a small story. But then, as it comes with cancel culture, these kind of things just seem to go away. But yet, it doesn't go away for you, right?
Mm.
So you're at a spot now where you're prepared here to sit here and talk and share your story, and I'm so grateful that you're willing to do that, because I think it's a topic that's really, really important. But for the listeners and for the audience here, can we maybe walk back, to the summer and just talk about what it was like being Dusty Imoo, looking for a job, talking with the Maple Leafs, what that process was like, and the lead up to, I'll say it in quotes, your hiring, because essentially you were hired, as far as I understand. So do you mind walking us down that lane?
Yeah, sure. Um, well, everyone knows that Soupy Jack Campbell is in Toronto, and we're pretty tight, and we go back and work together, over the phone and stuff like that. So there's a connection there. And my agent came to me and said that um, they were actually looking to talk to me possibly about if I would be interested in the development or Marley's job. They actually said the Marley's goaltending coach, and it really wasn't what I wanted to do, to go back to that, the development role. Uh, that was kind of one of the reasons why I left LA. I wanted another challenge, so I went to the KHL, and then when I came back, because of the whole COVID thing, there wasn't a job sitting for me here, and this job opportunity came up, and I did the interview process. I said I would talk to them. It wasn't really what I wanted to do, but I said I would talk to them, and then talk with Soupy, and that that pretty much made up my mind that I wanted to be around him, and I thought I could help him indirectly, and then also uh, use my expertise in helping to develop some of their goalies in Toronto. So I thought, you know what, let's see if we can make this work. So I think it was about a month process or so, and with the interviews and whatnot, and everything was awesome. It was great, and got
Can we maybe, I'm just going to stop you there if you don't
yeah,
mind,
yeah.
because I think that's an interesting part for a lot of our listeners. I know it is for me, even what that looks like. A lot of us have been on job interviews before, but not for a goaltending coach
Mhm.
position. How does that work in your world? Who does the interview? What type of questions are they asking? And maybe walk us through a little bit of that.
Well, you know what? It's different with every team. When I was in Winnipeg, it was one way. When I went to LA, it was a totally different interview process. It was really quite quick. Uh, I guess too, the more tenure or more experience that you have, interviews change as opposed to when you're doing your first interview and you had never coached in the AHL. But by the time I got to this one, uh, I was speaking mainly with assistant GMs and coaches, and I did separate interviews, along that way. So everybody's trying to get their hand on me as a person, and because I do have a reputation for being a little bit different as far as how I coach, and a lot more personal, and not as much about the X's and O's of it all. So they wanted to be sure that it was right. So I talked with quite a few people actually, and it was great. Everybody was great to me, and uh, you know as we move along here, I just want they. Uh, the people that I dealt with were great to me. So
Right. Well, one of the reasons why I asked that was not to be sneaky at all, but
yeah, yeah.
part of the process of when this kind of unfolded and unraveled was, it seemed to me like the admission from the Maple Leafs was, well, they didn't do their homework, essentially. So I was just
Mhm.
wondering, like, you mentioned they were trying to find out what type of person you were, and what made you tick and what have you. I was just wondering what type of, if those types of questions were asked during the process.
Uh, You know what? There was a lot of questions, a lot of, yeah, we pretty much, they knew everything about me, that was pertained to my personality, as far as my professionalism, and what pertained towards the job. And I think I thought it was well done and very thorough, but you know, anyone can speculate, by looking at it from the outside on whether it was done thoroughly or not. That's not for me to judge, but it was a long process. Yeah.
Gotcha. So, so you walk through this process, 4 to 5 weeks long, if I remember correctly, and you get word. Why don't we talk about that? You get word that you have, been hired, or you're the guy, right? And then there's these
Mm,
steps kind of towards what was going to be the press release or the announcement. And why don't you talk about those kind of the last few hours there leading up to the announcement?
yeah, I think I can't remember the exact dates. I think it was like the 7th or something like that of August. Um, yeah, it was all done. And then the next morning, my son texted me and said there was a tweet uh, from them that I'd been hired, and then I got a tons of right away texts and phone calls and stuff about congratulations. And then in the midst of that, I got another one from my son again saying, "Hey, Dad, you better check your Twitter." Because a few people are ripping on you. And from there, I went on and I privatized the account just to see what was going on. And that's kind of where the story takes a different turn. and and then from there, yeah, I'm kind of where I am now.
Well, right. So we're talking about hours here, right? Because like, wasn't there like there was supposed to be? I don't remember exactly from the last time we talked, but it was kind of released without you knowing that you like it was going to be public, correct? Like there was a couple little things you thought you were going to speak to somebody or whatever, and then all of a sudden it's kind of announced, right? It was like the formality of it. You're getting emails from the Maple Leafs saying, welcome to the team, like that type of stuff, right? Like that you were on board, and then they announced it publicly. Is that accurate?
That Yeah, well, it was on Twitter, so yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Okay, and then there shortly thereafter, I don't even know what they're called. Some Twitter trolls or social media trolls um, seem to find some ammunition in some of your social media accounts that all of a sudden gets some attention. Is that
Mm.
a accurate way to put it?
Yeah, because it is very general, and that's kind of how uh, it really was. But then they were laser focused on creating this storm, and they did it. Yeah.
Right. So as that, and maybe we can get into like what they were looking at, and maybe
Hmm.
people are interested. Maybe they're not. I don't know where your comfort level is at. Maybe we can talk a little bit about that. I know I can vouch for you personally. That one, you're not a huge platform guy with anything political or otherwise.
No.
And then I did hear that they were, they weren't you spouting off about anything in particular, but rather just a comment, or I mean a like of somebody else's, whatever it was. So maybe we can get into that, but like maybe we'll stick to the timeline here. So now you've been announced on Twitter that you've been hired. There's also been this Twitter uprising or whatever on Twitter. What happens in the communication process of like where you stand? Like, were you contacted by the Leafs at any point?
Um, Maybe we should probably skip to a little bit past that. You know, I don't want to involve them, because really, what essentially you and I really want to talk about is as we move along here. I'll move the timeline properly, but I don't want to focus on the team or anything like that. I let everyone else be judges of that. I've moved on from that, so I'm good.
Right.
But yeah, it's out there, and then within, you know, everybody's trying to make heads or tails of it. They're trying to do their due diligence and whatnot, and uh, then something else was released, and I was no longer a part of the equation. That's all I'll say. And from there, it literally took. I don't even think it was 48 hours.
Right. Well, I mean, I have the post from Brennan Shanahan here. Can I share? I'll share it here. Is that okay?
It's your podcast.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, I think it's relevant, I mean, to the story, and at least it puts this thing in a place where maybe people can understand who never saw this. Uh, and let's see if I have it, can bring it up here. Um, yeah, okay, here it is. So yeah, so this comes online, and this is where I became aware of it
Mm,
as a general person, right? That this Dusty Imoo will not be joining the Toronto Marlies. We made a mistake by not thoroughly following our organizational protocols when considering this candidate for the position of goaltending coach for the Toronto Marlies. Brennan Shanahan, president and alternate governor. Like, that's a pretty, I don't know what the right word is, but it's not. It makes you sound like one, you're bad, and two, they made some horrible mistake. Like, that was me, general public, reading that.
mm.
Like, what were your thoughts when you read
uh, yeah, that is a tough one, for sure. It caught me off guard.
that? Right.
Mm.
Now, because we want to talk about cancel culture, I mean, again, so this is like within, as you said, within 48 hours, maybe more, maybe less, from you being announced publicly to being fired publicly, over something to do with social media, and something that they claim wasn't, uncovered in the interview process, that they deemed important enough, not to bring you along. Like, I think it's relevant what it was, not in the sense that I think it's relevant that they were justified or unjustified, but just in the fact that how this has impacted you personally, how this has impacted your job, how this has impacted your higher ability, and why somebody as powerful as the Toronto Maple Leafs organization are succumbing to this type of stuff. I think it gets a little bit scary, for a lot of people that are involved in anything right now. So, I mean, I'll let you kind of go where you want with that. Like, can we talk about what the likes were, or what the where this whole thing originated from?
Um, uh, there are some things in my life that I'm not, and here's the ironic thing: I'm not comfortable things that I'm not comfortable in sharing about me or whatever. Hence, I've never posted it, anything, right? I keep that stuff to myself, and it's my business and nobody else's. Uh, and I do a job. I do a very good job at what I do, and care very deeply about each and every person that I work with, and have always had a great relationship with everybody in hockey, and have never had any issues in overlapping personal and my views or whatever. It's never been an issue ever. And so in saying that, the one of the most disturbing things is how quickly, whatever you want to call it, cancel culture, the mob, woke mob, whatever you want to call it, and how quick they are in passing judgment about certain things. Uh, and in my case, it is not even of anything I ever said or posted. I never did anything like that. And people kind of miss the boat on this because people are so quick to jump on board when they see anything that anyone tweets or posts about racism, uh, um, homophobia, transphobia, you name anything, all these touchy subjects. If anyone posts anything, it doesn't matter whether it's right, true or false, right or wrong, people just jump on it. And that's kind of what happened with me is there were Twitter likes that someone had to, and they had to do. My hat goes off to them. They had to go scour through it. It's not easy to do. You got to go into the likes and scroll and find these the things that I liked or whatever. And and then what they've done is they said, well, he liked this post, so this means he's this. He liked this post, so this means he's this. And they just went to bat. They went to town on the whole thing. And what disturbs me even more is there's a small group that did it, that got it going. But the worst part about it was the media, like, I don't know, ESPN, TSN, whatever. I can't remember which uh, networks they were, but the headlines about it were totally false. Like the headlines were like, Dusty Imoo fired because of extremist tweets. That's that's just wrong. It's not accurate. I never tweeted anything. You know what I mean? And to say that if I like to tweet about uh, that was supporting fun, supporting the police and not defunding them, like it would. That's an assumption that as to why I liked the tweet. Nobody knows why I liked it. I could have a buddy in the picture in the video. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
No, nobody knows. But what they took from that is that he supports this, so that means he's anti-black. How figure? Like, um, it means nothing of the sort. You know what I mean?
Right.
I
No,
just
it's not
use
even
one
like
of
that.
those
You that's far, far, far reaching, right? And
as an
that's
example.
yeah,
And the other one was if I liked a Trump tweet, not even Trump because Trump wasn't on, but about Trump. That means you take your pick on this one.
right,
I'm like racist, anti-Hispanic, black, you name it, sexist. Oh, and the kicker was the white supremacist. Someone called me a white supremacist. They like take a look at me. I don't know how I fit that category. you know
right.
um I've dealt with racism my whole life. I've being a minority myself, so it was like no one really saw the what was going on. They just jumped on this train of just kind of attacking because they thought I supported these things, or was a this was what I was all about, but nobody really knew, you know what I mean?
Just going to take a short break from the episode to thank you for tuning in. Uh, I didn't do that last episode, and I try to do that every time because I do appreciate the audience. I appreciate you guys listening. I appreciate you guys sharing and letting me know that you enjoy what I'm producing and the content and the guests and what the objective here is. So, thanks so much. As always, those of you who have left reviews on iTunes, I really appreciate it. Who share on other platforms, I appreciate it. Every time you do a share and somebody else listens in for the first time, hopefully you're making a difference for them as hockey players or as hockey parents because of the value of the podcast and what we choose to talk about here and sharing information that matters. That can make a difference. It can really be helpful for these players who are navigating their hockey journeys. So thanks again for sharing. Thanks for getting the message out. Now back to our very important conversation with Dusty Imoo on cancel culture. Right. And that's the inherent danger of what it is we're talking about because liking a post that is pro police does not mean that you're anti-black. Do you know what I mean? Like, like it's so not even in the same world, right? But like
Yeah.
the way media and the way these things are covered is that is what it is turning out to be. Um, and I don't know if it's like a leftist media. I don't know what it is. Like, maybe we're not here to figure out why, but like the thing that's like the most concerning part to me is when you told me, and I'll say this for the people who are listening here, like you were a little bit of a TV darling for a while, a media darling, because this resurrection of Jack Campbell, and obviously he's playing in the biggest market in the NHL, and he's having all this success, and they dig in and they find out you're involved in it, so everybody wants to talk to you, right?
Mhm.
Like you were everywhere. You were on TSN, you're on Sportsnet. I mean, you were on the radio shows. So it wasn't like you were a foreigner to these people. And then this happens, and tell me how many people called your phone.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I've come through this though, and
No,
it's
but
all
hold on. But seriously, how many people called, Dusty?
not many.
And to me, and I just want to step in because I know that you have your opinion of it, and I'm going to just say my opinion of it, because
Mm,
that's, to me, is where the danger is, because you can have a group of people that think a certain thing, right? Like that's going to
mm.
happen, right? And people are going to maybe want to stir the pot and do whatever they want. But isn't it up to somebody to try and understand the truth of it instead of being completely scared and frightened and running and going silent? Like, that's the part to me that is like nuts. Like, how come no one called and said, "Hey, Dusty, what's up? Is this real? Is this not real? Like, what's going on?"
You know, I want to say this though. I had tons of support. I'm not saying nobody contacted me, uh, but there was a lot of private messages. Not nobody public uh, for the longest time. Nobody public that was of some sort of celebrity in our hockey
Right.
world of business, um, because to be quite honest, people were totally scared of it. Like it freaked them out, and I won't name names or organizations, but like people that I know that I'm friends with, um, and through the teams I work with, the whole staffs were going right away. They were going through their accounts and going, "Holy shit, smokes! If you can get look what's happened to Dusty," and they know me as a person, and they're like, "If this can happen to him over Twitter likes." So everybody was just scratching their accounts, right? Like just cleaning house on just likes, right? Because like you could perceive and you could pick anything, you know what I mean, and go, well,
Yeah.
this is a little bit, racist, you know what I mean, or whatever. And all it takes
Yeah.
is a few trolls to post something. But yeah, I just want to clarify, I had tons of people, support wise. But in saying that, there were a lot of people that I was surprised that kind of disappeared, that went kind of silent because it's like they didn't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole kind of thing, or they kind of just skimmed over what they saw. Like you said, you're
Yeah.
like, holy smokes, oh, I can't believe he would do that, or I can't believe he would
Right.
say that, and they kind of just dusted me off, right? And don't really know about any of it, what really went down or anything. But it was kind of I don't want to say beautiful moment, but a really awakening moment for me to be able to see the real true friends and ones that probably were more just business acquaintances, uh, that I can move on from, and I'm okay with that. You know
Yeah.
what? I'm okay with that, but it would be it would be good for everybody to have a little more, understanding and just or want to understand it, what really happened as before you kind of make your assumptions, right?
Well, and yeah, I mean, what is the definition of cancel culture? Like, and to me, it's like when the media covers it a certain way, like you already said, like what the headlines were, right?
Mm.
It was reaching to begin with and wrong. And you would think there would be someone in the public eye that would want to know the truth of it, right? Like that would
Yeah.
want to know the truth and would actually want to cover the story because there is a story there in and of itself. But when the media is even scared to touch it and then they just leave it alone and now you don't have a job and it's all untrue,
Mm.
you know what I mean? Like that's the part that makes like that was the part that made me sick, and it still makes me sick. Like the way stuff happens with that. And obviously, your story is your story, and it happened to you personally, but it's happening all over the place in different areas, right?
Right.
Um, so I don't know. I mean, I appreciate you saying that people supported you, and of course they would because you're a good dude, and the people that you touch know what you're like. So I'm sure that you did have a lot of support. But why there is no one that wants to publicly cover it is like that's scary to me. Like, you know what I mean? Like
Mm.
that's scary.
Well, it's as hot a story as it was at the beginning, right? Because
Yeah.
it actually created, but in the negative way, because it was people. Let's be honest. Our society, we gravitate. The energy of the negative energy is a lot more um, mesmerizing to the public, and that's what we feed off of. It's just how we are in psychology of people. Negative things attract more. It's just how it is. So that right at the beginning, it was quite hot. The story, unfortunately for me, but uh, what you mentioned, it was quite astonishing, but not so much because I do understand now more and more every day how nobody wanted to talk to me and hear from what I had to say about it. And then the the media just posted or talked about it, the one thing about what had happened to me, and it was big, and that was it. And all the different people that I've interviewed with on different networks and whatnot, uh, that I would have thought would have been calling me right away to find out, crickets. You know what I mean? And I'd done plenty of interviews. Excuse me, like what you said with up up to that, the last year and bit before, the build up with Soupy success and whatnot, um, being on Hockey Night in Canada and all these different things. It's nobody really wanted to hear that end of it, and not and this is just an opinion. I believe it's a lot to do with because uh, narratives and agendas, and also the people that the personal people that I know that are reporters and stuff are probably scared. Even if they kind of secretly think, well, I heard that Dusty didn't even tweet this or whatever. And, to find out, to dig a little would be going the wrong way on the whole thing, and don't want to touch it.
Yeah, and I guess I'm just living in the dark ages because I think that those questions, like from a reporter, is if you wanted to talk about them, if this was something worthy of you being let go for, I think that the discussion is worth having. It's worth asking you the question and you saying whatever it is you want to say about it.
Yeah.
Instead of just posting this headline and then going away and not even hearing from the person who they're talking about. Like I think that's bad. That's bad reporting. That's bad storytelling. Um, and again, for the general public, because we're such a headline driven type of society now, where like we get our news in 5-second increments.
Yeah.
You have to read. In your case, you couldn't even read into the story and find the real story.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people that did contact me were like, I've been trying to figure out, based on the headline they read,
Yeah.
uh, where all this is coming from, and they couldn't. Um, like you could go down, and it's hard to find the tweets that I liked or whatever, uh, and obviously they have them because they screenshot them all. But I mean, as if you were just gonna dig yourself and try to see what kind of person I was or whatever, there's
Right.
definitely zero tweets from me.
Yeah.
And then you go on my Insta or whatever, like, uh, all, it's so ridiculous because all I've been, my whole being, uh, as a coach, anyways, uh, and how I use social media is really, I just try to uplift and be positive, and help, motivate, and eh, so I remember after, quite soon thereafter this all happened, I got a couple trolls on my Instagram. Just I posted the last Insta post I did, like it was the day, 2 days before this had happened. was about being motivated in the gym and being on the back nine, but I feel great. I haven't drank in 12 years, and it was just to try to be motivated. And since it was the last Instagram post, these trolls went on my freaking this post and started just saying these nasty, evil things about me. And I was reading my post and I'm going, how does this fit? you know, and then someone, they go really out of their way. They went onto my podcast on Apple and left a couple reviews and, just vile things and saying, and they switched to the Wikipedia. Uh, they switched it all up and said all these really nasty things about me. And um, they're good at what they do. I'll give them that. I'll give them that.
It's so funny, whoever these they are, we use that pronoun, like, oh, they know everything, like with this they, like I don't know who they are, like what are they doing and what agenda is it and who has that much time to do it and what's the motivation? Like I just don't
Yeah.
even, like I can't even comprehend that. I'm so far away from living like that. It's phenomenal.
I want to touch one thing, Jason, that as negative, as down feeling sometimes this can feel, and how what we're living in right now, and this topic we're talking about, it's kind of heavy. But I will say this: my I think it was my uncle or someone texted me and said, "I just want you to know, because Sportsnet had posted something, right?" And the comments, were coming in, and he said he went through like 200 plus comments. And he goes, I don't know if you care to know this. He goes, but for every one negative comment, there were 30 positive ones in support of me and whatnot. So it's not the majority. I will say that, and
Right.
it was encouraging and felt good to know that uh, common sense is still out there. It tends to be not the voice that is heard as much because they're a little more timid and scared about this whole thing and this culture. And so the one that is out there, they use their platforms. Uh, it's their boxing gloves, right?
Yeah, but isn't that an interesting discussion just in and of itself then? Like, I mean, if that sample size, let's say, is true, and we could extrapolate that across the spectrum, right?
Right.
Like that from the public comments. And if there is a majority of people that do have common sense and would like to know the whole story and would think it's ridiculous that you never got the job because of this, like why is this vocal minority that doesn't make sense, that isn't pragmatic, that is casting judgment quickly without even knowing the answers, like why are they winning?
Mm, yeah,
Like I don't understand that.
it's a tough. That's a whole nother podcast, a whole nother podcast. But I try to use it to empower me and be positive that there are good people out there, and I'm not going to let the couple of people out there definitely not ruin my life. Like on the surface, it looks horrible, and yeah, it hasn't been easy, and it's going to be a challenge moving forward. But I'm, what do you call me, Gen X? So like, I'm not going to sit back and not move forward because of this.
Right.
Um, and if anything, as time moves on, I get a little bit more powerful. I get a little stronger from this. And that's why it took me some time. And there were some other reasons why I was quiet for so long. It was like 4 or 5 months, right? And I didn't do anything with social media. And you're the first person that I've spoken with um, since it had happened. But through that time, I've used these things, and each little thing that kind of at first really rubbed me wrong, maybe hurt me too emotionally, and then it became kind of like fuel, and the support too from the people that I mentioned that did say some beautiful things, and and really had my back. Even if it was privately, it was still kind of built strength in me as time went on here. And now I'm ready to speak. Now I'm not out here to bash that the team or whatever. That's not the focus. I wanted to come on when we spoke before we started the podcast. It was more about uh, being able to have the freedom to have an opinion, and to be able to debate, to have different opinions, to disagree. You saw, I don't know if you saw, but I posted the first thing I had posted since it had happened, and it was kind of a statement. And and in that statement, my biggest thing that I wanted people to know is that with all this hatred and divide, uh, it's really making it worse in the world we're living in right now, and all the challenges and changing of opinions and whatnot. I just think that we got to really focus on not letting it divide us, and it should be okay to have the freedom to have a different opinion than someone else. Um, and that's what makes the world beautiful, is to be able to disagree, but find common ground and this and that. But the way the things are now, it's like people are scared to even post something that might be one way or the other. you know it should be okay, as long as you're spreading real nasty thing. Even if it is nasty, it should be your freedom, and you got to deal with the consequences. But I think coming out now and talking more about this with what had happened with me is a good example, because I didn't even say anything, and it really shows how once you get hit with, everyone looks at cancel culture and go, yeah, it sucks or whatever, but the average Joe doesn't really get it until it actually happens to you, and it alters your life, right? It really does. um, and that's why I think it's an important thing to maybe speak out and start talking about it, and not in a, I I don't want to come out here and rip on the few people that started the whole thing, because there were a couple people of support, more supporters from the Twitter thing, that found the first few people that got the ball rolling.
Yep.
And what, someone posted something like that, and then it just becomes a bang, 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 back and forth, right? And you're trying to, out them, and ridicule and bring down that person, and then they'll try to fire back at you, and it's just an ugly, ugly ring to be in, man. And it serves no purpose. I just would like to talk about it and try to encourage more so, use my story as an example, but not turn it into a hate campaign.
Yeah, I mean, my head's going so many different places. I mean, there's two
Yeah.
examples that come up to me outside of yours in recent hockey history where, um, like the one was that kid that got drafted by the Arizona Coyotes, and he was the guy that had the history. I don't know if you remember or not, but he had a history of back in like grade 9. He had this history with this kid in his local high school where he ended up getting suspended. The kid was black. I won't get into all the parameters of this thing, but it was something that went to court. Um, was found He was found guilty the certain way. There's a lot of nuances to the story here, there, and the other. Anyways, he gets drafted by the Arizona Coyotes. He had sent out a letter to everybody in the National Hockey League, like acknowledging this from 3 or 4 years previous. That this is out there. Um, he ends up getting drafted by Arizona. Somebody brings up this story that was public. It wasn't like it was private. Um, and the Arizona Coyotes ended up like reneging on their draft pick, which they knew about, right? So they knew about this thing, but because cancel culture got involved, they ended up outing this kid, like undrafting him, releasing him. And his school, University of North Dakota, where he was going to school and who had recruited him, who knew about it as well, ended up letting go of him. right? So now he's in the USHL, this kid. Everyone kind of wanted nothing to do with them, even though they knew the story. Like they understood where he was now, kind of what happened back in the day, and thought that whatever, they made a judgment call, right? And then people jump on board, and then they're getting rid of him. Nobody wants anything to do with this kid. And then the other one that comes to mind is the Montreal Canadiens, who drafted this other kid this year, who had this conviction or some type of conviction in when he was playing over in Sweden. They drafted him. Same thing, cancer culture picks up, and the Montreal Canadiens just made a public statement, say, hey, we were aware of this, and we're standing by him, and we're going to help, whatever, get him through the process, and we're going to make sure that we're part of the solution, not part of the problem. So there was two different, there's two different ways, I guess, to handle these things. And I'm not saying the Montreal Canadiens handled it right. Like maybe they should have let him go. I don't know anything about this kid. But I just know that, like, pretending that you don't know, or not wanting to know the real truth, and not wanting to be able to stand in a leadership position and give your truth of what's right to them, like the Montreal Canadiens did that.
Mm-hmm.
The Arizona Coyotes, from my understanding, ran from something that they knew. Like two different scenarios there, right? Because one's scared, one's taking a leadership position. Like, again, Montreal Canadiens might be completely wrong, but at least they're acknowledging the fact that they knew this, they did their homework, and now they're going to stand by it.
Mm-hmm.
And I can respect that. I can respect that in a leadership position, and I think when people get scared of having an opinion that might be unpopular to some people, and now that's affecting how they lead and how they choose, they shouldn't be in the leadership position in the first place.
Right.
In my opinion. I don't know. Like, and again, I'm not here to bash the Leafs either, but like, it's not about that, but it is about, like, where's the integrity in the process? Right. And where's the want to find out what the truth is or the truth isn't? And to me, reading, even how it came out, I mean, there's going to be a lot of people that forever, as you already said, they'll think of you as whatever they think of you from the headline.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't know,
Yeah.
And now, because of that too, I mean, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, there's a lot of teams that who's going to sign up there to say, hey, I want Dusty Imoo now.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a valid question. One that I don't know the answer to yet.
Right.
But I've already made peace with all of that, and
Right.
I've treated it as I don't need, I looked at the NHL and I'm like, okay, who seriously, if this is kind of how the society in general is, and I'm not talking just the NHL, uh, where do I fit in this whole scheme? Where do I fit in this whole scheme of things? And I'm like, you know what? I probably, uh, if I'm awake to this whole thing and active in doing the right thing, I should probably be realistic. and and for all intents purposes, I'm ready to not work in the NHL. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As much as I have moments of being sad that because I love working with guys and helping them, and even to the this day with Soupy and I, and uh, I love the guy, and that's not changing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we still uh, I still help and keeping him on the tracks, and I just would love nothing more for him to do everything that he could possibly dream of, and that part saddens me that I won't be able to be on the ice, doing that with someone, to get him to the NHL or win a Stanley Cup or whatever. But I got to be true to me too and hold my head high and know that I I didn't do anything wrong. You know what I
Right.
mean? I really didn't. I didn't do anything wrong or that I should be ashamed of. Like, some people, fringe, not I won't even say friends, but acquaintances, uh, advising me, maybe to release an apology soon thereafter. And I was like, hell freeze over before I do that. You know, I'm not sorry for anything.
Right.
You know, uh, I feel awful about what has happened, and if someone from the transgender community or black community or whatever, all found offense to what people were saying about me, I feel bad about that. But if they dig, find out means nothing. It's not true about me. I don't feel this way about you or you uh, or this type of community. Then it would die off and it would be fine. But that's not kind of what happened. Uh, so it saddens me that I'm not going to be able to be a part of that. But I'm okay with it. I'm getting stronger from it, and kind of we're at where we are now.
Yeah, well, that whole I mean, we've been a little bit, I think, aloof, and maybe you want to, but you've mentioned the word you were labeled a transphobe, and you've mentioned the word transgender now. Can we talk about that one tweet that you liked, like what the context was of that? Because I think it might be able to shine some light on the fact of how quick these things go to that label, right? With having opinion within
Mm,
that subject, like that is
yeah,
actually a very widely held popular belief, and not that popular belief is correct. Like I'm not going to say that like what the majority thinks is right. That's not true.
right.
In this situation, though, it's not like this is like some fringe type of philosophy that you liked this comment on it. Can we talk about that one with the Olympics?
Yeah, there's a comedian I follow, and I think I'm guessing that this was the one. I don't like soon thereafter. I know the types of stuff that look at or like or whatever, but I didn't know exactly which ones, and I didn't scour through all the negative comments. Like that'll kill somebody.
Yeah, no,
You
no
know what I
kidding.
mean?
Yeah,
I knew what had happened, and that's excuse me, all I needed to know. But I think it was from a comedian, and they posted something that was quite had a humorous tone to it, but was addressing and it was a small tweet addressing the issue of um, transgender being in the Olympics.
males competing against females, correct?
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
and I liked it.
Yeah.
But now let's be clear, like no one knows exactly what part of the whole process about that or that I like or don't. No one knows exactly why I liked it. And that's my business.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, fair.
But it has zero to do with whether I like transgender people or not. Like
Right.
zero.
Right.
Like I it makes no sense. And anybody that could look me in the eye, not on a tweet, look me in the eye and tell me that I don't like a transgender person and I'm a crap person for liking that tweet. Uh, you'd probably be hard pressed to find it's easy to hide behind these tweets and these attacks on social media. But the truth of the matter is, nobody knows why I like something. Um, and but at the end of the day, even if I had an opinion, I have that right to have that opinion about something like that. But it doesn't mean that I don't like the person. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like it really doesn't. And you know, and that would be when my statement I made. I did say, I do not I'm not transphobic or homophobic in any way, shape, or form. Everybody has the right to be who they want to be and feel comfortable and be open about who they are. I'm all for that. But as that goes with me too.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I should have that right too.
Yeah.
But apparently, one way you're not allowed to be open and have your opinion, but another way you can. Uh, and that's not cool either, right?
Right. But
But
what a slippery slope, and that's what I mean. Like for me, for me to say I don't believe that a person born a male that is a transgender female that wants to participate in the Olympics against females should be able to do that. Like if I say that, I don't I don't label myself as transphobic. There's nothing about that to me that's transphobic. That's just an opinion on where they should be able to compete or not compete on a fair playing spectrum.
Yeah.
That's dangerous though, right? Like to not be able to hold that opinion and say that, or to like something that maybe says that, and now you are transphobic is like ludicrous to
Yeah.
me. And then to take it a step further, even if you did hold that opinion, and let's just say it's a small snapshot, but then now you're not able to be a goalie coach because of that opinion, is even more abstract and crazy to me.
Yeah.
Like, so like, what is the lessons here though? Like, again, we're not here to bash anyone or anything, but this has happened. This
Right.
is happening. Like, what is the solution? Where's the lessons? Like, would you do anything different if you're to do it again? Is there a lesson for others to come out of this with? Like, I know you said you want there to be more shared, like you be able to say an opinion, but like
Yeah.
really, that's kind of sounds really fluffy because obviously we can't. So like, how can we get to a spot where we can do this?
I guess the start is like I've kept a lot of things to myself, and up until this happened, I did that in such a way that, it, one, it was nobody's business, but two, I didn't want it to be a part of their business, and our business interacting as player coach. And I cared for him deeply, but like as far as I wasn't trying to mold minds as far as my political opinions or views or any of that stuff. But I think the w- the only thing I can really think of that, like, I can be, like you said, fluffy and say, let's just all love each other, man.
Yeah.
Like it's easy to say, but it ain't gonna happen. It just doesn't work. It's not working that way. I still believe wholeheartedly that I'm I'm gonna choose the path of being positive and loving and not using hate as my tool. But I do believe that maybe the only ways to start getting some balls and standing up for yourself and speaking out about it and taking the hits as they come. Do you know what I mean? Like that's the scary thing that I think, and it really in the NHL, and I'm sure in the NBA and NFL it's no different in professional sports, or even where your job's on the line. People get really, really scared and quiet. And I guess so. I'm sitting here, do I not say something because I maybe want to work again in the NHL? Well, or do I just use this and start just standing up and speaking and not trying to create more divide, but maybe speaking and then hopefully try to bring things together a little bit. Like it's not going to fix the world, but if everybody felt that their one opinion or speaking out is not going to make any difference, then nothing will make any difference, right? But if you do it, one person does it, next person finally gets a little more balls to say something, say, you know what, I agree with that guy, and or whatever, and speak, and not in an attacking way, but just let people just start to have some opinions. Maybe that's the way to start to make change. I don't know, but being sitting here and not even the smallest thing like sharing my story, uh maybe it helps a, a tiny bit, right? But at least I'm not just sitting back in my room and sulking about what had happened to me, you know what I mean?
One last break here just to remind you of upmyhockey.com. Outside of the podcast, I do support teams and athletes to reach their collective goals or their individual dreams. It is a ton of fun to use my background in hockey, my training with mindset, high performance coaching to apply perspectives, changes in perspective, tools, strategies, self awareness, all these amazing things that allow hockey players to become better, to allow them to practice harder, to be more deliberate and intentional, to be able to understand how to grow leadership and to be a leader. how to grow areas of their game where they didn't think that they could grow. This is a lot of fun for me. Really proud of the work that I've been doing with individuals and with teams. So if you are a coach out there, if you are a hockey parent that doesn't really know how to grow mindset, how to what it's like to work with a coach, whether that be for your player or whether that be for a team that you are involved with, it's really cutting edge, and it's really, quite honestly, a competitive advantage. If you are interested in making it to the next level, if you are interested in getting your team over the hump and giving them the tools that they need to thrive in life and on the ice, then give me a ring. Reach out. Let me know that you're interested. I can share my peak potential project with you, which is the baseline and the foundation point for how I work with all my private clients, and is usually the modality that I turn to when we're working with teams. But I also do workshops and other things. So by all means, if you're curious, be curious, ask questions, find out more. It's still a little bit of a fluffy topic for a lot of people. What does that mean? What does mindset mean? What does a high performance coach do? How do you help? These are all real questions, and I get it, and I'm prepared to answer them. The proof is in the pudding. I see the results that we're getting. I'm more than happy to have a conversation with you and to share what it means to be a high performance mindset coach and how it could help your team or help your player. So upmyhockey.com is where you can find out more about that. Every 5 weeks at the minimum, I offer a coached course called the Peak Potential Project, Peak Potential Hockey Project. It's a high performance mindset course for hockey players who want to find a difference, and this is from all ages. I really designed it more for like bantam age and up, so like 13, 14 and up into the junior ranks. That was who I thought the key players would be. However, I've had 9, 10, 11-year-olds take it and grow leaps and bounds with the material. So if you are interested, like I said, at myhockey.com, you can reach out to me there or any social media channel. And now we'll get back to the episode with Dusty Imoo. All right. Well, no, you're not. You're definitely not playing the victim card, and I applaud you for that because I mean it'd be very easy to do that. But the reality is, I think you have been victimized, and I think why it strikes me so personally is, well, one, because I know you.
Right.
And, I was one of those people that reached out as soon as I found out. Right. And,
Mhm.
and always said, hey, whenever you're ready, let's chat. And I wanted to know the inside scoop because that's what I'm about. And I know that we treat our clients the same way. I mean, I want to know about the person, right? I'm very
Mhm.
granular,
Right.
I want to know the details. Like that's the way I am, because I like having an opinion that I feel is educated too, right? Like I
Right.
don't want to be told what to think. And
Right.
like whatever happened to media allowing people to make their own opinions with the information available? And I just don't know why. Like, to me, I think that's the solution for me, is that media starts being media again and not propagating some type of an opinion that we're all supposed to share collectively, right?
Right.
Like, do a job, report the news, report the facts, right? Like,
Yeah.
let me know who you are. Like, the fact that you weren't able to tell that side of the story and there wasn't some counter headline to the original headline, to me, is
Yeah.
wrong. Like, who knows? Probably less people would have read it, but at least it's there. At least
Right.
someone took the time to know you and wanted to know what your opinion was, and then allow me or Joe Blow or whoever in Twitter world to be like, oh, okay, now I'm going to make an opinion, right? But like, that opinion wasn't really allowed. And I just think when people are scared, and I'm not sure why they're scared, like, why should someone get fired for having an interview with you after the fact about what it is that's going on?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, it's so weird to me. And that's the part that's strange. And I do think it's a leadership thing. Like, it's leadership as well. Like, someone has to be able to stop the noise and say, we're not going to succumb to the noise.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's tough because where does the leadership really begin? D- That's the tough one
Right. Well,
because
what if, let's just pretend in this utopian world, Brendan Shanahan goes on there and says, you know what? I've talked with Dusty for 4 weeks now. And I'm not saying this is true or not true. I'm just saying, like, pretend, right?
right. Yeah.
He is
Yeah.
none of these things. He's a stand-up guy. We are happy to have him as part of the organization. And that's the statement.
Mm.
Like, what if that was the statement? It very well could have been. So maybe there's some noise for a little bit about whatever. They answer a couple questions, then it goes away, and you're still like that's kind of like, if they knew you, right? And if they did their homework, like, to be able to have that type of courage in the face of this. little bit of chaos or circus and this little bit of untruth to do that, right? To have that strong voice. Um, when the leaders are scared to have the voice, I mean, that's why I said it earlier. I think that they're not leaders, and to cop it
Mhm.
on the fact that, hey, I don't know this guy or we didn't do our due diligence, like, give me a break, you know, like that's a give me a break, I think, but again, that's my 2 cents. Uh, but anyways, man, I mean, I think you're handling this with massive amount of grace, I think. Um,
Thanks.
and again, I hope you are continually able to share, and hopefully help change this movement. And I think curiosity is like such an amazing trait. And if more people were curious, and if more people ask questions to these people, like maybe these stories get heard. Like maybe we're not such a snap judgment type of thing, right? To want to know more.
Yeah.
But I don't know how that changes either, in an instant, or how we get those second looks.
Well, it's a tough. It really is the $1 million question, and when you asked it, it was probably the best question of all. Is, well, how do you really change it? And it's something that we all should look at ourselves, and where we stand in the balls meter, because it's a tough one. It's a tough. If you really look at yourself, you're going, what am I really willing to say this or say that? You'll find a lot of people step away from the plate and not swing. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
it really is. It's just a fact of life. And you know what? I don't look at that person and go, you know what? You gotta, how dare you not have the balls to speak out? I get it. I really do. Because we have our jobs, we love our jobs, and we got to provide, and there's that line that people got to, are we willing to cross this to sacrifice possibly our job, or get canceled? But if I figured, you know what, like I've already lost my I lost my career up to this point. But I'm trying to build a new direction. So I'm like, at least let me step out there, step out there a little bit, and try to make a little message out there known, and see what kind of traction it gets. And I'm not looking to create fights again. Like, a part of me, I'll be honest with you, Jason, was I let it die, and dealt with other things for the 4 or 5 months. And I was like, you know what? It's quiet now, right? Uh, the damage is done. Like, it really is. Like, like, as far as my reputation, and because I haven't spoken and all this. And finally, once I was able to release a statement, I was like, oh, that felt good, man. And then I was like, you know what? Maybe I'm I'm gonna reach back out to Jason, and this will be my starting point. And this feels good. You know what? But you get scared because you're like, do I want to open up this can of worms again, and get a couple more trolls, attacking me again and stuff like that? But it's kind of that's the whole g- game plan with them, right? Like, it doesn't feel good when you get attacked like that, so it silences so many people.
Right.
And so I'm just gonna, continue if people hear it. And you look at this whole talk, we never talked about, it wasn't about me, even still, not about my views, or standing up for my views, or any of these different things. It was I'm really more focused on changing how we deal with this, and getting rid of this culture. It's not healthy for, what, I'm on the back nine, man. So in all essence, it affects me a whole lot less uh, than my kids and my grandkids. You know what? So that's where the balls for me kind of, I get a little more. I'm willing to, dig my feet in, and hold my ground a little bit, because my kids and my grandkids don't deserve to be living in this kind of culture. It's not right. I don't think it's healthy for the kids. And that's where I look to get a little more strength and being able to speak about this, because you have kids, and can you imagine growing up now, being afraid to say anything,
Right.
or you're gonna make fun of, you're gonna get, not just make, back in the day you get bullied or whatever, you went out to the back of the school playground and you just had it out and you dealt with it
Yeah.
with your fists, and maybe barbaric, but it was easily, and it was done, right? Now it's just so much more. you know we used to get a black eye and it'd be over, but the stuff that happens now is damaging to our kids. And that's where I'm building my strength. If it screws up me ever working in the AHL again, so be it. Um, but it's definitely a topic that needs to be shared, and hopefully my story can shed some light on it.
Yeah. No, man, fair enough. And words matter. And I'm going to jump on the troll police right now because you've used the word balls now a few times in this podcast. And the same people that are like grabbing at you for whatever your likes were are going to call you misogynist now for using balls as a term of courage. You know what
Oh,
I mean? And like,
is that a bad thing?
well, I mean, to some people, words matter. Like that word would matter, and they would think that that doesn't include the
Yeah,
females. And I'm
yeah,
not, I'm not speaking from that spot. But I mean,
right.
my point with that is too, like for those of you listening, that was a triggering word for you. If it was, like, you have to understand the inherent, like, what's the meaning? What's the intent? Like, what is your intent with that?
Yeah,
Like, are you trying to divide? No, right? Like, where is that
yeah,
coming from? And I think that's where, like, the red light trigger police are like, got him. Like, no, you didn't get him. You didn't get anything. Like, that's not where that word was meant from coming from. But it's just like, I don't know. We just gotta breathe. Like
yeah,
breathe, because you and I and everyone else are going to say the wrong, maybe micro word at the wrong time. I still say guys when I'm talking to teams that'll have a girl on it, and I feel bad about that, because I'm not. It's in my vocabulary, right? It's hard for me to switch that. It's not meant to be offensive. I'm not trying to offend. I'm trying to be inclusive. Um, but
hmm,
that if I say that term in front of the wrong people, all of a sudden fingers are pointed, right? Oh, this guy's a dinosaur. He doesn't get it, or whatever the case may be. And it's like, what is the intent first,
yeah,
right? What is the intent? Where is this coming from? What are we trying to do? What is the overall message? And yeah, I mean, I'm acknowledging that I need to change some of the language that I use, because times are different. Um, and I think that we're all in a spot of continual growth. Uh, but yeah, let's not be so quick to jump and point, and like, I don't know, like you said, let's love a little more. Let's try and respect a little more.
yeah.
Let's, I don't know.
It's great that you brought up that, using a certain word. I think it's a great uh, kind of tail end of this. And you know what? There's a small part to be like, well, should we edit that or whatever? But you know what? I think it's great to show that as an example, and listen to me for this hour or whatever, and hopefully you get a better idea of who I am and the type of person I am. Uh, I know it's only an hour's worth, but that I'm not this evil person. And anybody that's ever met me or worked with me knows where my intent is, and where my heart is. And I'm generally, I'm a flawed, but I'm generally a good person. And the fact that I use a certain type of language or whatever should bear no, it shouldn't have anything to do with me as a person. Can be brought up and say, hey, you know what, certain people might think this, and then I can make my judgment on whether. But I'll tell you, like, there's so many things now people can and can't say, and uh, but there's a way to deal with that.
Right.
Like, not go, instead of going from this podcast and listening or watching to your social media account and plaster something. instead maybe private DM Jason Podolin and try to get in contact with me and say, hey, certain people out in the community now might find this or this offensive, or I'm not sure if you're aware of that, but just giving you a heads up that, this is kind of where things are at now.
Right.
Done deal.
Yeah.
Avoided ruining people's lives, and just it's just a simple way to deal with something, right?
Yeah.
But it's just not how it gets dealt with anymore.
Yeah, no, I know, I agree. But just maybe we'll end off with your statement, because I did like your statement. I read it in the introduction, so it's been out there, so I won't read it now. But like you said, this is 4 or 5 months later.
Mm.
Is obviously you're comfortable with it because you released it, but I bet you it would have maybe said a few different things potentially, like after day one to week one to week four. Like, has there been a few iterations in that, or how long in the making was that statement?
The base of it was fairly early. So it wasn't like I scratched it and then waited 5 months and then made another one. Like, I made it fairly soon after, like a week after, and I was really chomping at the bit to speak and defend myself, because the stuff that was being portrayed, I was like, this is not me, and for anybody that's never had that happen to them, it's not a good feeling. uh, like, it's like, and especially when you're in the public, right? And now I built this reputation of myself, of who I was, and now it's just smeared. So I wanted to speak out, right? Because it was lies, it wasn't true. And on, advice, legally, to not speak was the right thing to do. Plus some friendly advice as well, that, just give it some time. And it actually was a good idea because it helped me see things, uh, not from the being losing everything, losing my job, losing, my career and everything. It became more about really what had happened and what is happening to lots of people. And so, yeah, it kind of shifted. Great question to ask, as far as that statement, because it kind of, it morphed as it went along, because, my thoughts on the whole thing, the base was the same though, but, some things I definitely, my focus shifted.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I said that a few times in the conversations, just like, who you are, like the poster of Dusty. Like, I'd have you with your goalie mask on a back shelf, with your guitar in hand, dressed up in the style that you like to dress up in, and maybe a motorcycle there in the background too. And it's like, like you're just laid back. Like you remind me of Jared Bender in your approach. Like, you just seem like you should be on a beach, like surfing, like you're not, when I think of some of these nasty words that they were calling you, like, I couldn't think of you being any farther from the truth, like that being farther wrong, right, and
Yeah.
missing the mark. So,
Thanks, man.
which is why I think it's kind of that it can happen to kind of anyone,
Yeah.
it seems like, uh, and I don't want this to be fear based either. Like, they don't want the lesson to be here, like, don't speak out. It happened to us. It can happen to you. But it's so hard for people not to make that connection,
Yeah.
and I think the goal here was at least to have some type of a pragmatic conversation about it,
Yeah.
like that. I think there are independent thinkers that still exist, that still can see through the trees sometimes, and get to some of these truths. And I guess it's just my wish at the end of the day that more of these people, whether it be in the media or in leadership positions in the public eye, that have the time and have the courage and have the resources to get the full picture, and then to make a real decision,
Hmm.
instead of one that's imparted or fragmented by the whims of social media, which seems to be the way it goes sometimes, unfortunately. So that's my wish, Dusty. I don't know if you have any final comments on the whole thing.
You know what? I just, to end it off, I just want everybody to stay hopeful, hopeful and positive that we can come together, as a society. And this sounds really poofy, but, it's the truth, man. Like, if we're if we can't find a common ground together, it's going to be an ugly place. It's getting ugly out there, and I just want to try to help that, even if it's just a small little bit. So um, I'm here for whoever. I always will be. If you feel you need a sometimes talking with people helps, and we both are in that business, and it might not start out with you speaking publicly, but maybe it starts out with you speaking to a person like Jason or myself.
Right. Yeah, no, good stuff, man. We have to try and find if we go into conversations trying to find common ground instead of trying to find the difference. I mean, I think that's a really good starting point too.
Mm,
It seems just with everything that's going on, and I mean the C word, COVID, being one of the main factors here with the disease of the unvaccinated or the vaccinated, and where you are on that side of the fence, and it's just become so polarizing. Uh, that I mean, like we're instantly attaching labels to both sides of this thing, and we're finding reasons to not get along or to not agree or to find contention, where we can just as easily choose a different narrative, right, and try to find common ground with it, and trying to find the human decision, and the human trying to make the best choice for themselves, at the end of this. And I just feel like it's become really, really polarizing in lots of areas of society. And um, having real, honest conversations is a great way to start. And it's really hard to do that in the news when you're a headline culture. So I think that's why this podcast, I hope, is good. Not that I agree with everything Joe Rogan says, but like these types of outlets, right, where you can actually have an opinion and discuss it, I think it's healthy. It's good because it's you're not seeing it on CBC or CNN, or you know what you're going to get sometimes when you turn on the TV channel, and that shouldn't be what it's about, right? I should be able to find new opinions, new ideas, new conversations when I turn on the TV, and it's becoming not that way. But anyways, that's my ramble on my rant. I know that we're kind of on the same fence with that, and we both enjoy a good conversation, and I think that's a great place to start. So have conversations, have open conversations, be
mhm.
willing to listen, and be willing to share your opinion. I think that's the whole thing. And that's what I talk about with athletes too, like the empowerment of that. Like as soon as we hide from who we are and what our thoughts are, I mean, we're in trouble. So
Yeah. Well, the motto I always said to myself when I first got involved in coaching in the NHL was, regardless of anything, I was going to be true to me and just be me. And we talked about that in the past. And I'm really going to try to live up to my own beliefs and just, continue just to be me. And I believe that, hopefully good will prevail for me. And I'm really appreciate you taking the time to listen. I know that you wanted to let people hear some of this stuff. So hopefully some of your viewers get something out of this, and hopefully maybe we can shed some light, some help.
awesome, man. Yeah, and this is like the first podcast that has not really been hockey related at all.
Yeah.
Dusty is on an earlier episode where we get into all types of goaltending strategy and his coaching philosophy and what he's all about. And there's lots of good hockey lessons in that. So by all means, go check that out. But for this time being, I thought this was a story that needed to be heard and a topic that needed to be chatted about. So thank you so much for being willing to share and trusting me with your story, Dusty. I really appreciate that. And by all means, I wish you the best in anything that's coming your way, and keep fighting the good fight, my friend.
Well, thanks so much, buddy, and all the best to you and the fam.
Thanks, sir. Well, thank you so much for sticking around to the end. I hope we did that justice. I mean, it's so hard to navigate that space, and even after we got off, Dusty was like, geez, I was nervous. And I was like, man, I wish you would have said that. He's like, I knew what I wanted to say and I know what I feel, but you just don't know, and yeah, in this day and age, I feel comfortable in my own skin at 45. I feel that I'm trying to do the right thing. I feel that I'm trying to support people and be inclusive, not divisive. And I know I screw up. I know I don't get it right all the time. I don't think it's about being perfect. Like I said in the episode, I think it's about the intention. And I think it's about where it comes from in your heart. and what it is we're trying to do. And sometimes these conversations are difficult, but I think they need to be had. And I think on the tough subjects, we have to be brave enough and strong enough to be able to share what we think. Obviously with the intention of not trying to prove somebody wrong. That's the other thing too, is like, if we can share collectively our opinions, and if we can be prepared to even debate them, let the best idea win, right? Like, let us be prepared to challenge each other. Let us be prepared to embrace different views and to question different views and to try and live in that thought for a while and see how it works, and not be so quick to cast judgment. I think that's like the end of like my takeaway with this whole cancel culture thing, is that we're just so quick to judge and to point the finger and to look down our nose that we know it, they don't get it. And we're all guilty of it, of course, myself too. We're humans, like, we're flawed. That's the whole thing. Like, we don't get everything. But my goodness, for someone like Dusty to go through what he did, and there's other names that this kind of stuff has happened to, it's just not right, you know? And for leadership and for media not to want to know the other side of the story, to not think it's their job to dig in, and for the leadership, in this scenario, the MLSE, I think that they were cowards in this. You know, that's a pretty bold statement. And I don't know what happened on the inside, but I do know that Dusty wasn't called. that they did not try to figure it out. That they just ran, and there was no need to run. You know, I don't think leaders run. I think leaders stand, and they want to find out what's going on. And obviously this scenario is not just about the Toronto Maple Leafs or MLSE, and it's not just about one enterprise or another. This is a collective issue that is happening, and yeah, I think it's scary, because I think if we can't speak and if we can't say what we want without fear of, you know, the worst possible scenario coming, then we're in trouble. And we live in North America for a reason. I think that's one of the reasons why we live here, is that this is supposed to be some place where we can share opinions and have opinions and be able to deal with the opinions. So again, that's me. I hope we did this justice. I hope you understand where our intent was with this. It really isn't to point fingers at anyone. It's trying to find a solution. It's trying to move forward. It's trying to, you know, support Dusty, allow him to have his spot to say what he wanted to say, and I thought that was really important. And thank you, Dusty, for sharing your thoughts with us, and for choosing this platform and Up My Hockey to do it. That you feel safe enough in sharing that on this spot for the first time. So thank you so much for doing that. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Be brave with your opinions. Be willing to look at yourself in the mirror and your own opinions. Be willing to accept others, and let's not just be so quick to judge. Play hard. Keep your head up.